Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Decentering Men series. In this episode, I'm going to talk about all of the reasons why 50-50 is a scam. Whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids, doesn't matter. I hear some people saying that 50-50 is not a scam if you're child free, or there are certain instances where it's not a scam. No, it doesn't work because if you have a career track that is expected to have a higher earning potential than your husband. Like, for example, let's say you have a successful small business. Maybe you're a YouTuber, you're an influencer, or like you have clientele or something like that. And then he has a regular 9 to 5 job. The average 9 to 5 job only gets promoted, what, maybe 5% a year at best? So if you're one of those ambitious women who's like a career woman who's really driven or something, or if you work in a field where your income can fluctuate to the max, like you can 10x your business or something, your relationship will eventually become hypogamous because you're going to want to spend that money. You're going to want to go on trips. You're going to want to get a new car. Let's say you're a real estate agent and you end up making $1 million and he still makes 100K. You're going to want to do something fun with your money, but it's going to become hypogamous because your husband, he now does not even have the money to celebrate in this new lifestyle that you have access to. So you actually have access or more financial potential than he does. So that's another thing that a lot of women don't look at. They don't look at the career track that that man is in. Like, if you're marrying a man who focuses on stability, there's nothing wrong with being stable, right? A lot of men, they just prioritize having a stable job. Most men are not builders. They're not natural protectors and providers. So I don't like when people try to say that, like, oh, he needs to be a protector and provider. Okay, well, you just eliminated 99.9% of men, because if all men were protectors, providers, and builders, there would be no such thing as 1% of people controlling the majority of the world's wealth. And so if you're the type of woman who wants a protector and a provider and a builder, you actually have no choice but to decenter men anyway, because 87% of men make less than $100,000 per year, first of all. And also, even if he does make 100K per year, most women, they want to live a lifestyle that requires more than just $100,000 per year. And so let's say you get into a relationship and you're going 50-50, but then your business blows up, your relationship is going to eventually become hypogamous and you're going to end up paying for all these fancy trips that you want to take, or you know what I mean? And I've also noticed there are different ways that people do 50-50. So for some people, they say like, okay, I want to put 50% of my income into the joint account, and then you put 50% of your income into the joint account. So if you're making $1 million per year and he's making 100,000 because, he didn't get a promotion and you just got a really big contract or a really big brand deal or something, now you are putting $500,000 in a joint account and he's only putting $50,000 in a joint account. So do you see how quickly it topples over and it turns into hypogamy? So I feel like a lot of ambitious business owners are at risk of their marriages becoming hypogamous. So if you're an influencer, if you're a business owner, if you're some sort of hairstylist or independent contractor or a solopreneur, that is something that you have to think about. You should be avoiding 50-50 relationships the most, because if you're working in a career where you've already 10x'd your business once, if you've 10x'd it once, you can 10x it again. And so a lot of men who are just working kind of these everyday 9 to 5 jobs, even if it's a high paying job, the chances of him getting a promotion from 100K per year to suddenly getting $1 million per year, the chances of that are slim. And so that's another thing that ambitious women have to worry about if they are getting into these 50-50 relationships, even if they don't have kids. What happens when your income surpasses his? It's no longer going to be 50-50. It's pretty much going to become hypogamous. My theory is that most 50-50 relationships are eventually going to become hypogamous on the woman's part, because women have been socialized to be multitaskers. We've been socialized to be more emotionally and physically and financially resilient than men. And there are so many stats that back that up, because women, a lot of us have grown up since childhood cooking and cleaning and helping to raise our brothers and sisters. A lot of female children get parentified more than male children. And so, as women, we are socialized to be the emotional rock, we're socialized to be the financial rock. Women are surpassing men in education, especially if you're like a black woman of some sort. Maybe you have dated black men or something. So, women actually have a lot more soft skills that are required to succeed financially than men in the first place. And so, just based off of that alone, if I were to do a basic financial projection of the potential of a woman versus the potential of an average Joe, it's not going to be 50-50 long term. So, you may start off with him providing for you, or it may start off as 50-50, but it's eventually going to become hypogamous. We've seen this happen so many times. We've I've seen this happen with influencers or singers, or and I know that most women are not influencers and singers, but if you're a businesswoman of any kind, you most likely have a lot of earning potential. And I've noticed that a lot of women will marry men based on their potential, but men don't marry women based on their potential. Like if you're overweight, if you say, hey, I'm only about 100 pounds overweight, just give me about a few years and I'll lose the extra 100 pounds. Most men, they're not going to sit around and wait for you to meet your potential, but a lot of women will sit around and wait for men. And this is what screws women over in the end. But another thing that happens is I've noticed that some men will try to gaslight you and then they'll say, oh, it's our money. But it's like he doesn't say this rhetoric about, oh, everything is ours when it comes to his secret credit cards. He will guard his laptop, he'll guard his phone, he will guard all of his private accounts. So that's not ours. But suddenly, when it comes to you paying your 50%, or when it comes to you paying the portion of the bills, oh, everything is ours. What's yours is mine, right? But I've noticed a lot of men, they don't actually keep that same energy when it comes to their Xbox or their PS4 or their car. There are some men that don't even let their wives and girlfriends drive their cars. So I've noticed that it's funny how what's yours is mine only applies to the woman, but it doesn't apply to the man. Another aspect of 50-50 is 50-50, it's always going to be an upgrade in lifestyle for men. Because for example, um, there are more single women who purchase houses than men. A lot of men's ambition is actually just based on him getting access to a woman. And so once he's got you in the marriage, a lot of men actually will lose their ambition because he's already got what he wanted, which was basically a wife and a mommy and a free blow up doll and a maid. And, he's already got everything he wants. What more can he ask for? He has you and he has porn. He has you and he has OnlyFans. He has you and he has the kids or the in laws or whatever. So a lot of guys actually, they will use 50-50 as an upgrade in lifestyle for themselves because let's say that he only has $5,000 in his bank account and then you come and you put your 5K with his, now you guys have a small down payment for a house. He couldn't afford that house before you came along. But you could have been better off having peace and just living in your apartment because a lot of women don't have this extreme need for materialism and like keeping up a particular image of wealth. A lot of women, we don't center our identities around the appearance of wealth in the same way that men do. So I've seen plenty of women who are happy living in their apartment or living with their roommates or with their sisters or whatever. So you actually could have been better off just not going 50-50 on a house where you're not going to like 50% of the decorations. You don't like 50% of the groceries that you're purchasing. You don't even like your own husband 50% of the time. And he doesn't even like you 50% of the time. He likes your money and he likes your cooking and he likes the stability of having you. He likes what you bring to the table emotionally, but he doesn't like what you bring to the table sexually. So he is getting all of his needs met while you are most likely only getting 50% of your needs met. So you literally could have been better off just having peace, living in your apartment because you don't have anyone to argue with. You don't have to check anybody's phone. You don't have to ask him who's texting him, who's calling you, who's that new receptionist at the job. I notice you've been staying at work late. It's so funny because I actually had an executive director at my last job as an accountant. He was an executive director. His wife would be calling him like, you're staying at work late. Like, who are you working with? What are you doing? Like, are you there with any women? So a lot of women can actually be poor and still be happy. Most men cannot be poor and happy at the same time because a lot of men have that external locus of control that I talk about. So men's external locus of control tends to be based on things like dominance, power, and their ability to subjugate others. And so a lot of men, they can't be happy and be poor. They can't be happy and be middle class. A lot of men need the woman to come in and build him up financially because he wants to be seen standing in front of that house. He wants to be able to walk into work and tell that cute receptionist, "Oh yeah, I just got a house over in Beverly Hills," or "Yeah, I just got a property over in the Hamptons." So a lot of guys find their sense of self-worth based on how dominant and powerful they appear. And so as a woman, you're giving him that emotional power, you're giving him more financial power. You're excusing his sexual deviance by allowing him to, cheat on the side or have this little, he's calling phone sex operators, he's going to the strip club on weekends, you're turning a blind eye to it while simultaneously giving him a 50% discount on bills and giving him the ability to buy a home. And so another thing I've noticed is that a lot of men will get married and then they'll start pressuring their wives to upgrade their lifestyle so they can impress their coworkers and friends. But they won't say that though. But they'll just naturally start pressuring the woman. You need to start saving so we can get a new house. You need to start saving so we can get a new car. Meanwhile, that woman wasn't thinking about a new car or a new house before then. I've noticed that a lot of women are actually not as much of a monolith as men. Like, there are some women who are very artsy. There are some women who will move to other countries. They'll be like an expat or something like that. So I feel like women, because of our inherent self esteem that tends to be higher than men's, we have this freedom in our identities that men don't have. A lot of men are spending their whole lives trying to fit into a cookie cutter idea of what masculinity is. Meanwhile, there are plenty of women, especially if you've decentered men, then you don't have to fit into a cookie cutter version of femininity. So women don't face the same level of financial pressures as men. There are women who can literally just not have a car and just ride a bike, or they just walk everywhere, or like, you know what I mean? Like they just live in a cute little loft somewhere and then they just hang out with their friends and have drinks. But most men cannot be happy with that because a lot of men don't even have a sense of community outside of a woman. Men use women to build sexual communities. They'll try to build a harem, or they will try to build like a roster of women that they're sleeping with. Men will use women to build a family unit because a lot of men have tormented their own mothers. They've tormented their own siblings. They've got sibling rivalry with their own brother, so they're not close to their own siblings like that. A lot of them don't even believe in the concept of therapy, and so the woman is also going to be operating as his therapist, whether you want to or not, because women have been socialized to be more emotionally intelligent and emotionally aware than men. And if you don't believe me, there are plenty of stats on this. Men have not been raised, young boys are not raised to value emotions. And so you can't be intelligent in a particular area if you don't value that thing to begin with. And so women are inherently bringing more emotional intelligence and emotional awareness to the situation, unless the guy is bad at choosing, in which case I would give them the same talking point that they give us, which is, oh, you should have chose better. So you're bringing more value emotionally to begin with, but then you're paying 50% of the bills as well. That's why I say that it's a scam, because a lot of men, they're not seeing your emotional value. A lot of men only see value in things like finances, sex, you birthing his children, or you like doing domestic labor for him. If you guys check out some of my former videos where I talked about lust and labor, most men want you in their lives for either lust or labor. So you're going to be naturally doing the labor emotionally in that relationship. Anytime you're dealing with a man, if he is a normal man who is a straight heterosexual cisgender male, and he's been socialized as male, or he's been socialized in a traditionally American context, or he's been socialized in a westernized context, he is going to lack emotional intelligence naturally in comparison to women. So this means that when you guys are arguing, you're going to have to explain to him why your feelings were hurt and like, what he can do better next time. So you're literally going to be teaching him throughout the course of the relationship how to treat you and how to emotionally operate with you. That is a form of labor. But a lot of men don't see that as valuable. And so this is why they still want to charge you 50% of the rent, because they only see value in money, sex, or some other form of labor, such as domestic labor, but not emotional labor, though, because That doesn't hold weight with a lot of men. They don't value emotional labor. And so a lot of times you will ask a guy like, "Hey, do you want to go see a therapist?" Most guys, they won't even see the therapist, or they will like quit once they are held accountable for their wrong actions. But I've noticed that if a woman just stays single or if she eliminates that, then she doesn't have that emotional or financial pressure because it's just you. So, for example, like right now, I'm living alone, so I don't have to cook for anyone. I literally just ate an avocado out of the fridge and I just put some tahini on it. If a man is hungry, you can't just hand him an avocado and say, okay, this is what you're going to eat. This is your snack. No, men eat meat. They're going to naturally start demanding some meat or a full meal or something. They're going to start demanding more from you. And when it comes to 50-50, it's never equal on the woman's part because women end up paying more with their time and they pay more with their mental energy. Time is a valuable commodity. Your emotions are a valuable commodity. So if I would normally just eat an avocado and then keep working on my business, making YouTube videos, tapping into my creativity, but now I have to spend an hour making fried chicken and french fries, that's time that I'm taking away from building my business. That's time that I'm taking away from self-care. That's time that I'm taking away from working out because I'm also going to probably do the dishes afterwards. I have to scrub the grease off of the fried chicken thing or, I have to clean the air fryer. So a lot of men, they're not looking at the hidden costs of a relationship because I've noticed that there's a pattern where a lot of men just see things at face value. They just want the image on the outside. They just want the house. They don't care about what's going on inside of that house. He doesn't care that you paid the majority of the bills and that he doesn't offer anything emotionally and that he's going to use that house so he can promote himself to a side chick. No, no, no. He cares about the house. A lot of men, they just care about the face value aspects of life, such as cars, money, houses, sex, status, power, dominance, being the manager at the job, not so he can come in and like change the world and be this altruistic person. A lot of women are very we have a lot of emotional depth. So I've heard of a lot of women, they'll say things like, "Oh, I really want to change the world and help women and start an orphanage and stuff." No, the average man is not thinking about starting orphanages and like, doing all this charitable work. He wants power, he wants dominance, he wants to feel strong. But what a lot of men don't understand is that with everything they're chasing in life, they're chasing an emotion. You're always chasing after an emotion. Why do you want the house, Johnny? You want the house so you can feel a particular emotion. So, do you see what I mean about how they don't think things all the way through? They're just seeing things at face value. He's not thinking about why he wants the house. It's so he can feel stability. Why does he want to feel that stability? You should be able to feel stable with or without a house, with or without a car. You should be able to feel emotionally stable with or without material things. So, do you see how it almost always leads back to their emotional voids? So, I've noticed a lot of men are very unaware of their own emotional voids. And so they will seek after all of these external things. And by the way, oftentimes a wife is just another external thing, unfortunately. A lot of times a wife is just another thing to collect. It's just another thing that you're putting on your belt. It's another box that you're checking off. It's a notch on your belt. So this is why a lot of men tend to view sex differently than women as well. And some people would even argue that even their biology is what makes them view things differently as well because of testosterone and other things like that. Even their hormonal makeup is different as well. Okay, so if I have an advantage emotionally, hormonally, biologically, if I'm offering more to the relationship, then why would I then go 50-50 in terms of finances, especially if the man has access to those finances? And so, do you see what I mean about how a lot of men, they're literally coming into relationships with a taker's mindset? They're not coming into relationships thinking of what they can give. And if they are giving anything, okay, I'll pay 50% of the bills. That's it. I'll pay 50% of the bills and I won't beat you up. I won't beat your ass and I will pay 50% of the bills. All right, cool. Now give me everything else. And I've also noticed that usually when you're married, your living habits start to mirror the unhealthy person. So, next thing you know, you used to be eating avocados as your snack or as your little mini meal or whatever. But now you're having French fries, you're eating fried chicken here and there because it's protein anyway, right? So then next thing you know, you gain 50 pounds and now he's looking at skinny Instagram models while you're in the kitchen cooking chicken. Because cooking that fried chicken and the French fries, not only are you eating differently, but you're taking time away from your workout regimen. Maybe you don't have time to look in the mirror as much. You don't have the extra money anymore to spend on body mirrors, and those mirrors where it's like a magnifying glass, you can see the wrinkles and stuff forming underneath the surface of your skin. You don't have all that extra money and time anymore to find those things on Amazon. And so now your self-awareness as a woman is going down. And so I feel like a lot of people, they make 50-50 seem like it's simple, but it's not. When you live with a person, all of your bills double. Okay, so right now, my expenses are $2,500 a month. Okay, that's going to cover everything. That will cover my gas, groceries, rent, a little bit of shopping money, my hair stuff, my beauty stuff. That's going to cover everything. But if you bring another person in with the same amount of expenses, and by the way, most men tend to have higher expenses than women because a lot of men spend extra money on electronics and things like that. Women will spend money on like a beauty blender sponge. Like that's what I spend my extra money on. I used to be an accountant, so I am very like meticulous. I will look at what I'm spending my money on. But a lot of men, they're spending money on $500 Yeezys and Xboxes and PS4s. So their spending habits and their impulse spending is actually different. They're spending money on $50 per video game. So if he's a video gamer, each video game that he purchases, that's an extra $50 to $100 per month. So if you're going 50-50, if my expenses are 2,500 and your expenses are 3,000, so now you're asking me to pay 50% of a $5,500 bill per month at this point, as opposed to just paying my $2,500 just for myself. So do you see what I mean when I say a lot of men, they're not thinking it all the way through because they're only seeing their side of it. They're only seeing how they can benefit. Like, hey, if I have this extra 50% of my bills freed up, now I get to spend more on video games. Yeah, we're not stupid, Joe. We know that that's what you're trying to do. That's why we're not participating in it. So it's like, if you bring another person into your life with the same amount of expenses, most likely his expenses will be higher than yours, but let's pretend that they're the same. Your monthly expenses have still doubled. So even if his expenses are the same, I'm still spending the same amount of money, but I now have increased stress. And I'm spending the same amount of money, but I now have less time on my hands. I'm spending the same amount of money, but I now have to do more domestic duties. I hire people to help me clean my apartment. Yes, that's right. I literally have a 1-bedroom apartment and I live by myself, but I don't really like doing a lot of cleaning. So yes, I will go on TaskRabbit or I will go online and I will pay a maid $50 to $100 to come and clean my apartment. But a lot of those luxuries that you're able to have as a single woman, now you have to discuss those with your 50-50 bill partner. Now you have to discuss that with your husband. And he could say, no, I don't want you to spend $100 on a maid. Why don't we just both spend an hour cleaning? So now you're starting to give up certain aspects of your lifestyle. You're giving up a lot of freedoms. What a lot of people don't realize is that marriage and 50-50 and all this stuff, it tends to be more of a sacrifice for the woman. And this is even if you're child free, it's still more of a sacrifice for the woman because she's sacrificing more emotionally. A lot of women tend to have more emotional foresight than men, which is why a lot of us are decentering them because we are noticing a sociological pattern in the behaviors of men. And so we are starting to see that it's a scam. So just because Generation X, just because they were all mules and workhorses and they were hypogamous and paying all the bills and holding their man down while he goes out and cheats, women are emotionally smart enough, we are emotionally intelligent enough to understand, wait a minute, just because something is a trend in society doesn't mean that we have to follow it. But I've noticed a lot of men, they will just naturally follow whoever the dominant man is. So they'll follow what rich white men are doing. You know what I mean? They'll follow what the top 1% of men are doing. And it's like, but you're not the top 1%. You don't have multi-millions and billions of dollars to spend. You don't have the same resources as somebody that has more to offer than you. So do you see what I mean about that lack of emotional awareness? Kind of like him thinking that he has more to offer than what he actually does. And then they'll have the audacity to say, oh, well, you're average at best in terms of looks. Okay, let's keep the same 50-50 rhetoric. Okay, so let's pretend that if you are average as a man, if you have an average income, you deserve an average woman in terms of appearance. Okay, so the average dress size of a woman in the US, I believe, is a size 16 to 18. So if you make an average income, that means that if you want to use that same rhetoric of if you're average, you deserve average, then you deserve, quote unquote, a plus size woman. So you shouldn't be complaining. So do you see what I mean about how, once again, they're lacking in emotional foresight? You're making an average income or you have below average emotional skills, but then you want a woman with above average emotional skills. And then you want her to pay 50% of your bills on top of that. And another thing that men do not think about when it comes to the whole 50-50 thing is you cannot quantify every aspect of life in the same way. So, for example, when it comes to a man's emotional intelligence, I can only gauge your emotional intelligence based on your behaviors. So, if I decide that you as a man have less to offer than me emotionally, you can't really argue with that. So it's like, how are we really going 50-50 on emotions? Most relationships would fall apart right now if the woman were to keep the same emotional energy as the man. Because in a lot of 50-50 relationships, the woman is actually putting in 100% of the emotional investment. She's texting him first. She's calling him first. She's the one that's looking up date ideas. She's the one that's looking up vacation spots. She's the one that's trying to keep it spicy in the bedroom. He just gives up and goes and looks at porn. He just gives up and goes and calls a phone sex operator. He just gives up and goes and texts his ex. And so, my question for 50-50 people is, how do you quantify the non financial side of a relationship? Because the majority of a relationship is not financial, right? I mean, once the bills are paid, you only have bills, what, once a month or something? Or, you're paying for certain things and then once it's paid, it's paid. So, how do you quantify the non financial side of the relationship? Most men can't even begin to conceptualize that. Most men don't even know how to explain the term emotional investment. If you ask a man to name 35 different emotions, he can't even name 35 different emotions. A lot of guys have never even seen an emotion wheel. They don't even know what that is. A lot of guys have never even been in therapy. They don't even know. So it's like, how can he even begin to quantify the non financial aspect of a relationship? So it's not actually 50-50. It's most likely 50-50 in terms of finances, and then it's 100-0, or it's 80-20 in terms of sexual investment, in terms of emotional investment. Most women are very sexually and emotionally monogamous. Like if a man were to have a conversation with a woman, if he were to sit his wife down and say, "Hey, honey, I no longer want to like look at porn or anything. I don't want to look at OnlyFans girls. For the rest of our lives, I just want to focus on each other sexually. So like I don't want to look at porn or anything." Most women would be like, okay, that's fine. I don't want to look at porn either. But statistically, the majority of men can't even go 90 days without viewing pornography. So I can already tell you, based on statistics alone, that your relationship is not 50-50 in terms of sex. It is not you investing 100% and him investing 100% in you when it comes to his sexual energy. He's already not investing equally in terms of that. So this is why I say most 50-50 relationships are going to be a scam for the woman, because you're going to be investing more in him sexually. He's going to be hiding his sexual deviance from you. So it's probably going to be 80-20 in terms of sexual faithfulness, because whenever you go home or whenever you're at work or whenever he's at work, he's going to be looking at other women or whatever. So it's already not equal in terms of sexual investment. It's already not equal in terms of emotional investment. It's most likely not equal in terms of domestic investment. It's probably not equal in terms of organizational skills. Or like if you were to just look at soft skills that a woman has in a relationship versus the soft skills that a man has, generally speaking, it's probably not going to be equal either. And so a lot of men, they don't even understand the nuances of relationships, because relationships, guess what? That is the female sector, okay? Because a lot of women are very good at talking about emotional stuff or, kind of describing that. So once you get into the emotional realm, which is relationships, relationships are an emotional connection that you have with someone. Okay, so we already know that women have the advantage in that. So it's already not going to be 50-50 from the beginning. And the fact that men are viewing relationships simply in terms of money or sex or you being a domestic laborer and a free womb, that tells me a lot about your emotional vapidness. And so if I'm taking on an emotional liability, why would I then go and also, on top of that, give you a 50% discount on bills? That is charity work at this point. That's literally charity work. Not to mention the fact that women have more ways to preserve their beauty than men. And so a woman can actually be in her 40s and still look good. A woman can be in her 50s or even 60s. And if she pays a little bit of extra money, she can actually still look good. So she's preserving her beauty. Meanwhile, you're going 50-50 and you're cooking him fried chicken and greasy fries. And so now his cholesterol is fucked up by the time he's 50. Now you're paying 50-50 on his medical bills. Now you're paying 50-50 on his heart surgery that he had to have. Now he's had a stroke, he's got hypertension, now he's got erectile dysfunction. Now his nerve endings no longer work. Now he can no longer have sex because he has ruined the nerve endings on his penis from overly masturbating too much to pornography. So you're dealing with all of these different emotional and financial liabilities, not to mention the fact that if I'm not mistaken, I believe that if you're married, a man's debt can actually be like shackled onto you. So even after he's gone, you're still paying for his shit. Or if you were silly enough to go 50-50 on a lifestyle that you couldn't afford on your own, now you can't afford to leave. Or if he passes away, he didn't have life insurance or something like that, now you can no longer afford the mortgage. And so now your home is in foreclosure or you've got to move back to the hood or something. So you're going to be starting over anyway. And don't even get me started on the 50% divorce rate. And by the way, did you know that statistically the number one reason for divorce is based on finances? And did you also know that the majority of relationships are 50-50 or, the woman's paying bills basically? So that tells you a lot. If most relationships are 50-50 and there's a 50% divorce rate, I wonder what that means. Not to mention the fact that there's another stat that says that the average marriage adds 7 years onto a man's life while simultaneously taking away 7 years from a woman's lifespan. So you're telling me that from a statistical standpoint, I am potentially giving up almost a decade of my actual lifespan just to even attach myself to you. And then on top of that, you want me to pay 50% of your bills? Bills that I wouldn't even volunteer to have on my own? If I'm not paying $3,000 worth of bills by myself, why would I suddenly pay $3,000 worth of bills with a man who wants to live a $6,000 a month lifestyle? That doesn't make financial or emotional sense. And it doesn't make sense for my physical health either, which makes sense as to why that statistic exists. That women are literally, years are being shaved off of their lifespan due to stress. And there's another statistic that also says that the happiest women are actually unmarried, child-free women, that's the happiest demographic. There's another stat that talks about how even single mothers actually have more free time than married mothers due to like not having to do as much domestic duties. Because, once Johnny is sleeping, once your son is sleeping or whatever, you're pretty much done for the night. You can leave the dishes in the sink. You don't have a husband telling you, oh, you need to clean up this kitchen or you need to cook me something. So even single mothers are out here having more free time than women who are doing all these domestic duties. And then you're telling me that on top of that, I'm supposed to pay 50% of whatever the lifestyle is that he wants to live. So if he wants to live a $10,000 a month lifestyle, I now have to pay $5,000 a month when my bills were formerly just $2,500 a month when I was by myself. And when I was formerly in the happiest demographic of women from a statistical standpoint. So you're telling me that I'm supposed to take myself out of the most happy demographic of women so that I could then pay 50% of your bills? That is one of the most laughable talking points I've ever heard in my life. And also, when it comes to like emotional labor and mental labor, a lot of men don't even know what that is. Like if you talk about emotional labor, if you ask a man to describe what emotional labor means, most men can't even describe what it is because they've never been to therapy, they've never actually studied themselves, they've never like journaled and like done all of this different spiritual work. Oh, and by the way, if you're spiritual, did you know that even the spiritual community is majority women? Like most churches are like 70% women or something like that. So even if you're a spiritual person, The majority of people doing spiritual work right now, meditating and shit, those are mostly women as well. So you're telling me that I'm supposed to pay 50% of your bills, and this guy, he literally has damn near nothing to offer spiritually, emotionally. He's sexually not even giving himself to you entirely because he's sharing some of his sexuality with sex workers. But I'm supposed to pay 50% for that? That makes no sense. And also, there's just something about a man asking a woman to pay that just completely turns me off. So it's like, okay, let's say we want to go on a vacation. Then he's like, oh, can you pay for like 50% of this vacation? There's something about that that just turns me off because it's like, if I'm on the vacation trying to post Instagram pics and stuff, I'm going to be thinking in the back of my head, I just paid for myself to go to Tahiti. I just paid for myself to go to Hawaii. So I could have just done this on my own. If you are not benefiting my life and I am benefiting yours, it is not an even exchange. And so, because I already know inherently that most men are going to be an emotional liability, because I'm going to be teaching them how to treat me, you have to teach them when it comes to sex as well and sexual compatibility. You have to teach a man like what your turn ons are or whatever, because let's say it's a man who learns about sexuality via porn. I don't want to be rammed and choked and slapped and all this other crap. I don't want any of that. So now you're having to have all of these emotionally draining, difficult conversations. And by the way, this is the norm in marriage because if you look at my previous decentering men videos, I talked about how the average couple argues, I think, what is it, 1 to 2 times a week? And that is considered a healthy relationship. So 104 arguments per year is considered a healthy relationship. So you're telling me that I have to argue with you 104 times just to have a healthy relationship, and then I'm also supposed to pay 50% of the bills? And then I also see some people who are like, oh, well, relationships are never equal. Like sometimes you're giving 100, they're giving zero. Sometimes you're giving zero, they're giving 100. Okay, so then that doesn't make sense for me then in terms of risk. I don't have time and decades to waste and like, money to waste where it's like, oh, I might just give 100% of my emotions or 100% of my body, 100% of my heart, and then he's going to give zero. Or like there's a chance that he's going to give zero. Why not just do what I can trust? I know that I can trust myself. I have self trust. I can trust myself. I can trust my friends and family and the people who have already been there for me. So why would I then jump into something blindly and then you expect me to feel comfort by saying, oh, well, it's not going to be equal. Sometimes he's just going to give zero. You just have to accept that. Sometimes he's going to give nothing. You just have to accept it. At least he's trying. So I've noticed that whenever it's a man, there's this rhetoric of at least he's trying. But when it comes to a woman, if a woman is overweight or if a woman is ugly, they don't say, well, at least she's trying to look pretty. She put on a little bit of eyeshadow. I mean, she looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. She looks like a monster, but at least she's trying. So men don't give the same grace to women who are quote unquote just trying. So why should I turn around and give that grace to a man and feel comforted by you saying, oh, well, it's just not always going to be equal. Sometimes he just won't try. You just have to deal with it. That's just a part of being with a man. Okay, so then that's a horrible promotion of marriage then. Then I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to risk my life and risk taking 7 years off of my lifespan. And then you just told me, basically, I'm going to have to accept that sometimes he's just not going to give a fuck, basically. Or that I have to accept these emotional breadcrumbs, like, oh, well, at least he's trying. Trying basically means it's breadcrumbs. That's really what people mean. Well, at least I'm trying. At least I didn't cheat on you. I was only looking at porn. It's not like I went out and physically cheated with my coworker. I only slapped you in the face. It's not like I punched you or unalived you. So it's like this minimization. It's minimization of the woman's emotional state. And a lot of people talk about like decentering men, and you guys have asked me, like, okay, so what do I put at the center of my identity? For me personally, the center of my identity is my emotional, physical, and spiritual health. That is what I care about. That is what's at the center of my identity. I need to be mentally sane and healthy. I want to make sure that I'm not having like anxiety episodes. because I don't know where he's at, or he didn't come home, he didn't text me back, or he didn't come up with his 50% of the bills. And, my bills used to be $2,500 a month, but now they're $6,000 a month because he wants to live a $12,000 a month lifestyle. And now he didn't come up with that. So I'm having an anxiety attack. No, I don't want any of that for myself. And then some other people are like, well, if your partner is paying for everything, it means you're not going to have a voice. It means like you won't be able to decide where you're going. You won't be able to decide what restaurant you're going to. You wouldn't feel comfortable speaking up in the relationship. Okay, so that would be true if he is financially controlling. So now you're making men look bad again because you just revealed to me that men will use finances as a way to dominate and control. So now you're making marriage as a whole look bad because you're basically admitting, oh, he's going to try to control you if he pays all the bills, but he's also going to try to control you only 50% of the time if you pay 50% of the bills. Okay, so you're literally admitting that men by nature want to dominate and subjugate women in relationships. So you didn't eat like you thought you did. Like your argument still doesn't stand. And then I also hear a lot of men saying things like, well, you wouldn't be able to afford a house without a man. You wouldn't be able to afford an upgrade in lifestyle without going 50-50. No, actually, you still can. It would just take 50% longer for you to do that. So if I have to wait one extra year to purchase a house on my own versus having to invest all this stuff emotionally, go through all this turmoil, go 50-50 with a man so I can have a house right now that I'm not even going to be happy in when I live in it, um, then I'll just do it by myself because it's not worth the trade-off. It's not worth me trading my mental and emotional health so that I can get a 50% discount on my bills. I would rather just lower my own expenses and pay all of my own bills doing the thing that I love or living the lifestyle I want to live rather than arguing with a guy, having to emotionally invest, having to worry about who he's texting, what he thinks of me. Did I make him aroused enough? Does he think I'm pretty enough? Just to have this slight difference in my living situation. Like, is it really that serious over a house? Am I that codependent that to the point where I'm willing to emotionally and mentally torment myself just so I can have an extra bedroom that I never use? Just so I can have a staircase and a loft in my house. I'm willing to be mentally and emotionally tormented in a house filled with demons, basically, just so I can have a staircase and a patio and a balcony. If that's not codependency, I don't know what is. And that leads me to my next point, which is that a lot of men in general are extremely codependent. You say women are codependent, there is no comparison to the way that men have had a history of being codependent on women. Let's talk about the history of men in general. A lot of men are codependent in general. You're codependent on using slaves and using the labor of other human beings in order to build your own capitalistic systems. You're codependent on the labor of men who are beneath you financially. You dominate and subjugate even other men in the workplace. And so you expect me to believe that suddenly you're not codependent at all on a 50-50 marriage. So you're telling me that throughout history, you've been codependent on slave labor, on child labor, on sweatshop labor, on subjugating men who are of a lower socioeconomic status. You've been codependent on all these different isms. You've created entire artificial structures to build yourself up in society. But suddenly, when it comes to 50-50 marriage, that's not codependent at all. And then I've heard a lot of men say things like, oh, well, you have to spoil him sometimes too. But a lot of times, what they're calling spoiling you, it's literally just bare minimum stuff. Like, oh, I washed the dishes today. Like, I'm spoiling you. Oh, I asked you on a date. Like, that's spoiling you. So I've noticed that if a man says that, you want to ask him, like, wait a minute, what do you consider spoiling? Because I've noticed, like, our standards are totally different. I've noticed that women's standards in general tend to be a lot higher than men's because most men, they just want someone who's like pretty and, doesn't argue and pays 50% of bills. And a lot of men won't leave, they'll just cheat. A lot of guys don't even leave a woman unless they've got another woman lined up or something like that. So that's codependency number one. But also, they'll be calling it spoiling you when in reality, it's just them treating you like a decent human being. They'll be like, oh, but I didn't cheat. I'm just looking at her. I'm just going to the strip club, just looking at women. It's not like I'm cheating with them. And so, once again, it's them utilizing minimization tactics because they don't understand the emotional harm that it does when they're going to the strip club and looking at the other women and getting lap dances and all that. They're not valuing your emotional state. They don't value your mental health. I deeply value my mental health. So just because you're living in a mental hell, it doesn't mean that I'm willing to tolerate mental purgatory, because that's really what a lot of 50-50 relationships are. It may not be complete hell, but it's pretty damn close. And then I've noticed another talking point people will say is, not every relationship is the same. It's whatever you agree to. Okay, that's fine. And I do not agree to doing that dynamic. So go find someone who does. And it's so funny because there are plenty of ugly women, desperate women, codependent women, red pill women. There are plenty of other women who will go 50-50, most likely. So why don't you go to one of them? No, it's because it's never enough. I've noticed because of men's emotional vapidness in a lot of cases, a lot of them don't realize that they have such an internal vacuum to the point where nothing's ever enough. So it's not enough to settle with this red pill girl who doesn't wear any makeup and she looks like a homely woman. She wears the long skirts down to her feet. She wears her hair in a donut sock bun and she just walks around in a bonnet and she goes 50-50. No, 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 that's not enough. I still want to go for the IG baddie as well. And then going for the IG baddie, that's still not enough. I want to go for the actress as well. I want to go for the pop star as well. This reminds me of Ariana Grande, the guy that was married to his wife and had the kid or whatever. She held him down and supported him while he was pursuing his career as a struggle actor. Oh no, that's still not enough for him. He wants to go for a straight up pop star. So do you see what I mean about how nothing you ever do is enough anyway? And I'm not saying it like no matter what, he's always going to hate you, but it's like you guys have shown us historically that nothing is good enough. The slave labor wasn't enough. You still had to continue on with the capitalistic system. You still had to continue enslaving people from a different country this time. So maybe you're no longer enslaving African Americans. Now you're enslaving people in other parts of the world. You know what I mean? So it's like no amount of dominance and subjugation is ever enough. And so even when it comes to things like sex, no matter how pretty I am, no matter how sweet I am, no matter how fit, feminine, and friendly I am, he's still going to look at other women and be searching for them on X-rated websites. He's still going to be talking to exes or messaging other girls on Instagram or Facebook or Reddit or Discord. So then why waste my time? And why would I pay 50% of my money to that? So I'm paying for this. So I'm literally purchasing a boyfriend at that point. I'm purchasing an image at that point. I am purchasing the image of a marriage. I'm purchasing the image of a good relationship. I'm not actually getting the real thing emotionally. I place a high amount of value on my emotional state. I place a high amount of value on mental health. So 50-50, oftentimes it's just the woman purchasing the image of that. It's not her actually having that. If you don't believe me, ask your mama. Ask your grandmama, ask Big Mama and them, ask your aunties, ask your sisters, ask yourself. Did going 50-50 ever work out well for me? Did I like it? Did I respect that man highly and feel like he really offered a lot to my life? Because I have yet to meet a woman who is truly operating in happiness and femininity and freedom and creativity and, building the life of her dreams while simultaneously going 50-50 with a man. I've never seen it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I've never seen it. And sure, there may be exceptions, but guess what? The exceptions don't make the rule, boo. So why would I go into a relationship hoping that I'm going to have some sort of unicorn relationship? No, I live life based on reality. I'm not going to waste my life searching for a unicorn man, a unicorn relationship, a unicorn 50-50 dude. That doesn't make logical sense. I care about logic. I no longer live my life based on Disney and fairy tales. Men can no longer manipulate me with Disney and fairy tales and false emotional promises. Because a lot of guys, they'll just make promises. They'll try to lure you in with their words, or in some cases, they won't even lure you in with their words. They may try to lure you in with money in the beginning, because another aspect I've noticed is that a lot of hypergamous relationships will also go from hypergamy to then 50-50 to then hypogamy. And this is usually the case with like the ambitious women. So maybe when he first meets you, he's buying you flowers. Basically, the honeymoon phase is going to be the best phase that you'll ever have in the relationship, because that's when he's investing the most. He's taking you on the vacations because he's trying to impress you, because he hasn't gotten you yet. He didn't do the gotcha. He didn't do the gotcha yet. So oftentimes, the honeymoon phase is actually the best phase that women will ever have. And a lot of married women, they will be spending decades after that trying to make it back like how it used to be, or trying to like, refresh their relationship, or like spice things up again. So it's like, okay, why is it that I have to spend the next 30 years trying to spice things up again? Like, I thought that it was supposed to be, you just get into this 50-50 marriage and then it's good. Like, so you're telling me not only is it 50-50, but now you have to also spend decades reading all these marriage books. You're going to be the only one going to therapy, because a lot of men don't even believe in the therapy, or they will quit therapy as soon as the therapist holds them accountable. So I have to spend the next decades of my life trying to get back something that once was. Because I've noticed that's what a lot of married women, especially in 50-50 relationships, are doing. A lot of married women, they'll be spending their time like either trying to upkeep an image. And also, this is actually very simple. If you don't believe me, just go and ask your married friends. Go and ask them, hey, what was the biggest argument you've ever had in your marriage? What was the hardest thing you ever had to overcome in marriage? Because a lot of married women will actually tell you, and I've been married before, a lot of married women will tell you, you have to let a lot of things go. You have to let a lot of things slide. You have to overlook a lot of things. You have to turn a blind eye to a lot of things. I got tired of it. So you have to ask yourself, okay, what is my tolerance level for BS? Because in order to deal with 50-50 long-term relationships and marriages, you have to tolerate a lot of BS. And another thing that happens is men will go 50-50 with you based on false numbers. Like, I've seen this before where women have actually gotten divorced. I've known of women who have gotten divorced and the man was lying about his income the whole time. So he would be making 300K a year, but he tells her he's only making 100K, and maybe she's also making 100K. And so then, he's paying 50K, she's paying 50K, and then he's saving an additional 200K on the side. And then he's spending it on other women. He's got other accounts. He's got these extra credit cards. He's got a whole other apartment. He's got a whole other property that you don't know about. And then you don't find out until you are in the divorce, until you're in the court process of getting the divorce. Or you don't find out until a little sugar baby pops up and she had her college tuition paid for. So that's another thing. A lot of guys will actually try to go 50-50 with you based on false numbers. They'll try to make themselves seem poorer than what they really are, so that you don't expect a lot from them. So you can just settle for paying 50% of this little one-bedroom apartment. Now, boom, he gets to save 50-50 on his bills, and now he's got extra savings to get himself a second apartment. He's got extra savings to go on a trip. He's telling you that it's a work trip, but he's actually going to see somebody else, or you know what I mean? So, and I'm not trying to like scare people or be negative. I'm just trying to state facts. Like, even when it comes to 50-50, how do you even know that his income is what it says? If I don't see the pay stubs and if I don't see your bank account, I have no way to guarantee that that's even your income. Because another thing men might do is like lie and say that they have more money than what they actually do. So now you're over here putting him on a higher pedestal, thinking he's got it like that, and he really doesn't. Maybe he just wanted to sleep with you or something. So he's like pretending to be rich. Maybe his car is leased or something like that. Those types of guys, they lease a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or something like that. Or, they try to make it like they have more than they actually do because they want to impress you. And you think you're the main chick, but you're actually the side chick. He's already married. He's got a whole other family in Africa. So that's another thing about 50-50 and about men's income in general. They're lying a lot of times as well. The income that they're telling you they're making is not even their income. If I don't see pay stubs, a bank account, an offer letter, or all of the above, if I don't see your credit score or something like that, I really have no way to even know that that's actually what you make. I mean, you guys saw the Risa Tisa thing where the guy was making it like he had so much money or whatever. And he had a whole fake letter saying that he was about to buy a house and stuff. So she was over here. She was about to be a free womb for this man. She was about to have a free baby for this guy. Give him a legacy, give him a child based off of false premises. Also, generally speaking, men who want you to go 50-50, they just want a 50% discount on their bills. That's really what it is. Men who want you to move in with them and stuff, it's because they want a discount on their bills. They want someone to help him. He wants someone to help him financially. He wants someone to build him up financially. That's why he's asking for it. That's why he wants that. I don't see a lot of women asking for 50-50. I only see men asking. Why is it? It's because they're the codependent ones. The women are not asking, oh my God, I'm begging. I really want to go 50-50. No, it's usually the men that are begging to go 50-50 and pleading about 50-50. It's not women, because a lot of women, we are more emotionally fulfilled, generally speaking. We can live in a one-bedroom apartment and not feel like a loser. Like I said, a lot of men have no relevance in society, and a lot of men feel like losers if they don't have the big house, the fancy car, the wife, the children that are like waiting for them at the door and stuff, and like status. A lot of women can be satisfied with a lot less than men because we don't have the same emotional voids. A lot of men have not even been emotionally like fulfilled since childhood. A lot of men are not as good at like building emotional connections. They're not as emotionally comforted. Most men are extremely validation starved. There is a male loneliness epidemic. If you don't believe me, please go check out Dr. K. He is a psychologist that works with a lot of men. Please go check out Dr. Daniel Amen. He also talks about the differences between men and women psychologically. So a lot of men are way more validation starved than women. And so this is why women, we don't have to beg somebody to go 50-50 with us, because we don't even need the same material possessions or like all these external things. We don't have the same external locus of control on the level that most men do. I've seen women who are literally like bartenders, and they're living their best lives, and they're posting on Instagram and like being cute, and they got their little apartment. They have their little Honda Accord. They're living their best lives. Most men can't be happy as a bartender with a Honda Accord, because they don't have happiness within themselves a lot of times. You are their happiness. You going 50-50, that's their only pathway to happiness. You worshiping him is his only pathway to happiness. You birthing his children, that's the only pathway to happiness. You being his OnlyFans girl, his side chick, him having you as his phone sex operator or whatever, that's his only pathway to happiness in a lot of cases. So this is why I say that a lot of men, they're actually extremely women-centered. They're very sex-centered. They're very money-centered. Anything outside of themselves, they're going to seek after that thing to make them feel good inside. Because when he goes into the office, he feels like a loser. When he walks down the street, nobody's looking at him. Nobody's saying hello to him when he walks into the store. In fact, people cross the street when he's walking down the street. People are scared of him. Depending on how he looks, if he's big and buff or tall or kind of intimidating looking, oh no, people are avoiding him. Women aren't swiping on him on dating apps. So he knows that his only shot at any form of emotional fulfillment is by having that status. And you going 50-50 is going to help him attain that status. This is why a lot of men, they will have that thing where they call it the midlife crisis. They talk about like how the average marriage only lasts 9 years. Or some people even talk about how after 7 years, that's when a lot of guys tend to cheat, or when the woman becomes pregnant. Yeah, because you helped him to build that foundation of confidence. A lot of men just use women as their safe landing space. You are his emotional safe space. He'll never admit that, but that's what you are. And this is exactly why I don't believe in 50-50, because I'm your emotional safe space. That's extremely valuable. I am one of your only emotional safe spaces on this earth. And then you have the audacity to also have me be your financial safe space as well, when you're not my emotional safe space. So for a lot of men, they will get you pregnant and stuff because that makes them feel emotionally safe, to know that they got you, or that they're going to have access to you for life because you're married, or because you're pregnant by him or something. So even if you break up, you're more likely to come back. That makes them feel emotionally safe in a lot of cases. Like the insecure men and stuff, it makes them feel safer. So that's actually what triggers the cheating, because he's like, oh, I feel a little confident now. Maybe I can talk to that cute receptionist at work who I always thought was a 10 out of 10. I used to think she was out of my league, but maybe she's not out of my league. I mean, I already got Sarah pregnant. She's going 50-50 with me. So you know what? Maybe I can shoot my shot at the receptionist and, at worst, she'll say no to me, but then I can just go back to my wife anyway because I already have free access to her. And then maybe if I'm really good, I can get the other girl to be my side chick. Then I have two women. That's two sources of emotional validation. Now I'm getting emotional validation, I'm getting financial validation from 50-50, and I'm getting sexual validation from sex workers and porn stars and stuff. And I get a free child out of this. I get a child that's going to have my last name, and that little baby boy is going to put me on a pedestal as his daddy. Oh, I got it made. That's heaven. I have it all. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.